now on the air. I can see the sound monitor going on the screen, so here we are. Hi, and welcome once again to Fired Up. I'm your host for the show, Bob Irwin. We are coming to you live, broadcasting from the law office of Alan Butel here in downtown Las Vegas. Alan is a local attorney who appears on the show from time to time. He handles criminal defense and civil litigation, does a lot of gun cases. He's frequently a guest on the show, and he's letting us use part of his office to do our broadcast run, which is just delightful. This show is about guns, politics related thereto, and self-defense issues. We are on radio at KSHP 1400 AM. This show is rebroadcast there on Sunday morning from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. So when you're getting ready for church, tune in 1400 AM radio. It's streamed worldwide. And if you missed anything, you can listen to the show then. You'll just miss our smiling faces. We are on YouTube starting right about now. We're about 5 seconds ahead of the broadcast and what we're saying, and it's going out over the air. It stays on YouTube forever. So you have the advantage of looking at the show that we did 3 years ago on our website, Fired Up with Bob Irwin, which is on YouTube, and seeing what I said 3 years ago that was completely wrong today. My guest tonight is firearms instructor Maggie Mordaunt. I wrote in my notes, firearms instructor extraordinaire. Maggie, a bit of your background, please, for listeners.
Yes, thank you. Maggie Mordaunt. I'm known nationally and internationally as CCW Maggie. I am a defense instructor. I'm certified defensive firearms coach to the ICE training program, owner of Homeland Personal Protection. I live here locally, and I am the Nevada State representative for the Well-Armed Women, Las Vegas and Henderson chapter leader for Las Vegas and Henderson's Battleborn Women.
There we are. Maggie, you will find at most of the local, the large local gun shows teaching classes, and she teaches at the county range out the north end of town. In fact, she's everywhere. Look up CCW Maggie on anybody's search engine, and you will discover all sorts of things.
Thank you.
If you have a question or a comment about anything on the show, you can send a text or an email to bob@firedupmail.com. There's a sign right behind me for that. And or I have an office phone now. You may call. I check that at least once every 24 hours. If you have a question or comment, that's up on the sign behind me, 702-257-1060. We do try to answer every inquiry by email or phone call. If you have a question about gun laws and things, I don't sit on the phone 24 hours a day to answer the questions, but I will get back to you if you leave a message for what you need on that recorder. There are several hundred defensive uses of firearms every week in the United States, depending on who's doing the counting. We generally on the show, I use examples of shootings that took place and what went right and what went wrong. Some of them are good shootings, some are bad shootings, some are stupid. But the reason we do that is I leave the names out and I put in just basically the event. And when we do this, we're doing a really small version of Fired Up, or of the event itself, because in reality, we're looking at 4 banker boxes full of papers with real shootings, and we're putting it into a paragraph form. Mm-hmm. So I try to hit the high points, and we go from there. There are always a lot more details. Hence the next warning: if you have a actual case, a shooting you're involved in, or one of your family members is, you need to contact a local attorney in your state and county for legal advice. Things we say on the air may apply in Nevada. They certainly wouldn't apply in New York City, et cetera, et cetera. The laws are different everywhere you go. We did a bit of a story last week on the Castle Doctrine, and the Castle Doctrine is now in theoretically 46 states, and it is substantially different one to the next. Mm-hmm. What is considered your castle, where the lines are drawn, and what you're allowed to do, and so forth and so on. So you need local counsel. Our listeners are outside of Nevada by at least 4 to 1. So What we're trying to do here is give you reasonable answers to reasonable questions to keep you out of lawsuits and keep you out of jail. Now, this first story is from Fox News 59 on the 7th of this month. It is in Indianapolis, Indiana. The mother of a family fatally shot an intruder who was trying to break into her apartment on the city's east side. This is around 1:10 p.m. Wednesday afternoon. The incident took place in the 2800 block of White Knight Boulevard, if you're familiar with that area of Indianapolis. It's near East 30th Street. Police report the mother heard someone breaking into her apartment. The resident woman came then face-to-face with an armed, I'm sorry, my cell phone's going off too. She came face-to-face with an armed suspect. Fortunately, she had also armed herself. Seeing this armed 19-year-old intruder, she came up with a gun, opened fire. Investigators say he died inside the doorway of the apartment after being shot. That may become an issue in Castle Doctrine states. The neighbor said, I hate to see that this happened. It makes what happens when you go into some people's house trying to take their stuff. When she heard the gunshots, she saw one possible suspect run away from the scene while another one drove away. Not unusual. The bad guys tend to flee. When one guy gets shot, they take off. Anyway, she shot the guy, and another neighbor said, you have the right to defend yourself, and I hate when this happens in our community. It's really sad. That's all good stuff. But understand the neighbor's opinion doesn't matter to the judge and the jury. The investigator's opinion and the jury's opinion and the judge's opinion matter. The mother and kids were not hurt, and she's said to be fully cooperating with the police. I'm not sure I like the word fully in there, but that's what it said. An officer that was there said, it's disheartening that we see burglaries resulting in death, but we live in Indiana and it's legal for people to have guns to protect themselves. This is a IMPD officer named Aaron Hamer. This shooting marked the second time in as many days that an Indianapolis parent was forced to shoot an intruder in his home. On Tuesday, a father shot an 18-year-old suspect during a home invasion on the city's northeast side. A couple of comments. This is a couple of cases right back to back where having a firearm in the home saved lives.
Yes.
If you're looking at this lady had not had a gun, who knows? The comment from Officer Hamer is interesting. Let me read it again. He said, it's disheartening that we see burglaries resulting in death, but we live in Indiana and it's legal for people to have guns to protect themselves. What is he saying? That it's a good shoot or that it's bad to shoot people? It's kind of a double-edged statement.
Yeah.
Is he saying that the victim should not resist?
Yeah.
Or is it's a goofy quote that seems out of context. Before I let Maggie weigh in, I want to say one more thing. Responding to investigators is a good thing. You want to stay at the scene and tell them what happened. That's okay. You don't want to tell them why it happened. That's where you fall over something. When you start to tell the investigator, I was thinking this, so I fired my gun. The jury may want to hear that when you have an attorney. You can tell them what happened. Sure, I live here. That's my gun. I don't know this guy.
Right.
And he came crashing through the door frame's broken. And I'd like to talk to an attorney before I go into any details. Where people have been doing this 30 years and where I find people get themselves in a jackpot is by telling the officer why they shot him. You gotta leave that out of it. Just tell them what, not why. Okay.
Right.
Maggie.
So, well, here we have a mother who's got to defend her children and herself. She's well within her right to defend herself, of course, in Indiana or in our country as a whole. It was a good shoot, and she stopped the threat. Ultimately, that's what her intent was. We know that if our life is in imminent danger, we shoot to stop the threat. Our intent is not to kill. Death is a side effect of your shot placement. And we see here that law enforcement showed up. Again, her emotional and psychological state, when law enforcement does show up, she needs to understand that as a responsible gun owner and the use of force, really what her speech should be, if anything. I mean, to prepare herself for what would I say if I had to use my firearm to defend myself. Having your attorney on speed dial, or having at least an attorney, even if you don't have a retainer for that attorney, at least it's good to know an attorney in your area, that at least you have their number, you know, make some contact with them, let them know this is my name, I have a firearm and I intend to use it for self-defense. Could I use you in the event that I had to use my gun? Could I say I have, you know, an attorney, I have someone who can speak on my behalf? Not to mention the cases where individuals develop a little bit of that amnesia. Maybe they prepared for one thing but responded in another way. So oftentimes people say, well, I shot this many times, but you know, the casings would say differently. I mean, even law enforcement cases and use of force cases, they think they shot maybe 3 times and they find 5 casings on the ground. So thou doth protest too much. Don't say too much.
What she's mentioning becomes the hook for the lawsuit lawyer to say she's lying about what happened.
Right.
Don't give them all those details till you have an attorney there, and the attorney will tell you, talk to me first, and we'll spell out this whole thing before you make a actual signed type permanent statement. How about that?
Exactly.
That's what you need to do. We're always talking on the show about training, and I want to point out I am no longer, as most listeners know, I'm no longer with the gun store in Las Vegas. I retired, although I will be getting mail there for the next 35 years, because you can't look up me or the gun store without getting both on the internet. But they are continuing under the new ownership. They are continuing to teach the concealed carry classes every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday. The nice thing about the gun store is they run the class. We have lots of folks where you sign up for a class and then you get there and there's no class because it didn't get 6 people, that sort of thing. The gun store runs every Monday, Wednesday, Saturday, starting at 9 a.m. The gun store, LasVegas.com. You can go on our website, sign up for the class online, and get decent training. It's still my lesson plan, so it's okay. This is another Indianapolis case. I almost did a whole show on Indianapolis cases. There was just one right after the other. This is Fox News 59 on the 6th of this month. Castleton area homeowner shot an intruder who tried to break into his home just after 2 in the morning. It happened on the 7600 block of Wickfield Drive, according to Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department. Investigators say 3 people, including a child, were in the home at the time of the shooting. The intruder entered the home through a side window. In this particular instance, the homeowner acted in complete justification using deadly force, said his attorney, Jack Crawford. Tra-la, a smart homeowner. Attorney Crawford says even though the intruder, I left his name out there, did not have a weapon during the break-in, the intruder in Indiana law allows the homeowner's right to defend his wife and his 3-year-old child who were in the home at the time. Indiana law adheres to the policy of the person's home is their castle. You know, and you can use deadly force if you're at risk of being injured or killed. And this is the part I love about this story. I picked that up immediately. The guy's attorney is making the statement, not the person who did the shooting. So that means they called the lawyer right away, and they're way better off. Here we have what apparently is an unarmed intruder. So is that going to be a tough case where you might get sued out of your socks? Yes, it is. Now, the IMPD Major Richard Riddle said, as far as I can tell, the intruder did not have a weapon on him, but we want to make this very clear. The individual forced entry into the home, and the homeowner confronted him with his own gun, with his gun. Not the intruder's gun. The
intruder did not have a gun.
Yes, we think. You have a right to protect yourself and your family inside your home at all times, as long as that force is reasonable and you are protecting your life, liberty of yourself or a third party. The Marion County Coroner's Office identified the deceased man as a local 18-year-old. Now, in April, this 18-year-old suspect was arrested for possessing drugs and a stolen gun. In May, he was arrested again following a hit and run while smoking marijuana. Last week, he was arrested a third time with theft and drug charges. Although criminal charges against the homeowner are not likely, the decision, of course, will be in the hands of the Marion County Prosecutor's Office. This is certainly a good shoot, and he came in, there was a baby in the house over. The district attorney, I am sure, will agree. They already apparently have some discussion between the police and the prosecutor, although it's going to go to a grand jury. Probably. But the bright thing here, as I said at the beginning, is getting the attorney to be the front guy to talk, not you. With an apparently unarmed intruder, there is always the chance of the lawsuit. They will argue that the shooting of this unarmed child was not reasonable in this case, when it actually was reasonable, of course. But that's where the lawsuit lawyers find their wedge issue. He's not going to be an 18-year-old that's committing all these crimes. He's going to be a child who didn't have a gun, and you killed him.
Right.
That's the problem. That's why you need the lawyer speaking for you. This is a good shoot. No question about it. Is there going to be litigation? Very likely, even with a strong counsel doctrine like Indiana has. They're still going to come back and say, look, I know there's a castle doctrine, but this child was in the house and he wasn't even armed. So we're suing that the castle doctrine is not being properly applied. That's how the wedge gets this thing into court. So they'll have a little mini trial if the castle doctrine was applied correctly. And then if it wasn't, then a real trial.
Right. So we're looking at, in this case, bare fear, insufficient to justify the killing, reasonable fear is required. If this homeowner, hopefully in court, they can show because he does have counsel, he's got legal counsel, and they'll actually look at everything. I mean, this guy already has an arrest record. He's got, a bad rap sheet here. He's well within his right to defend his family and himself. I mean, 18-year-old, that's a grown man.
No, it's an unarmed child. It depends on your point of view. It's
a grown man. I mean, gosh, I know 15-year-olds that are bigger than me. I'm only 5'3", so that's not saying much. But anyway, so I think that the shooting, he was justified in doing so, in my opinion. I think that the state will see as well. Maybe the family, maybe not so much. Maybe they could, potentially file a civil suit against the homeowner for the death of their son. I don't really know. But that's where the attorney is going to take over and, try the case.
He's already setting up to deflect that lawsuit before it gets started.
Oh, yeah.
That's why you need him there.
Yeah.
This is a little better story. We got a trained homeowner here. The Daily Iberian, that's a newspaper, and KABC TV3 reported on the 7th in Jeanneret, Louisiana. Police chief, his name is Jeffrey Matthews, said a suspect broke into a house at the 2000 block of Frisco Street around 2 in the morning on Wednesday. The 60-year-old female homeowner was watching TV in the living room when she heard a noise. She went to the bedroom and retrieved her gun. Hearing more noise, she went to the kitchen and found an intruder standing in her kitchen. There were actually, I believe there was more than one, but anyway, there were two at least. The first subject shot at her and she returned fire, hitting him 4 times. Had her gun with her and actually hit the guy with it.
Nice.
Ta-da, yeah. Anyway, that suspect fell to the ground and a second intruder kicked the back door open. He was still on the outside of the house. He kicked the back door open. That's the door they had actually entered through. This was really complicated to figure out what door they were referring to. Right. But anyway, he was still outside. He kicked the back door open and both of them fled out the back of the home. They both fled the scene towards some railroad tracks nearby. A bloody trail led police over the railroad tracks to a patch of grass where the wounded suspect was laying. He was transported to a local hospital in critical condition. Police are still looking for the second suspect, who is possibly wounded. There wasn't any blood trail, so they're not sure the second guy was hit. Chief Matthews said the hospitalized suspect will be charged when he's released. He did not release the name of either suspect. The armed homeowner defended herself and wins the gunfight. That's why we're here. Cody, the victim, had the will and the skill to use her firearm. I love incidents like this, which I could fill the whole thing with them, but I got to put some bad shootings because that's what people learn from. But this is where the victim really turned the table on some street thugs who were there. You expect these robbers will try this again? Yeah, I think they will. At some point, we'll run into home invaders if we have a lot more people like this lady. And I made a note to myself on this story. If you look up this story on the internet, Jeanerette, Louisiana. Jeanerette. There were two stories. One story, they interviewed the police chief, and that's basically the story I just gave you. The other one, they interviewed the county sheriff, who also arrived. His story, it sounds like a different shooting. He said the lady didn't go to the bedroom and get her gun, or come out of the bedroom with a gun. She said his interview with her, he said, third hand, that the woman was on the couch watching television when she heard them come through the back door and had her gun with her and went to the kitchen. He didn't mention the railroad tax. He did mention, the sheriff said that he arrived and his dog followed the suspect and they ran off the blood trail behind the house. Didn't mention that he went over railroad tracks or the body being found. It's interesting. It sounded like two different stories. Apparently, we have two law enforcement agencies who are not compatible with each other. There's some problem between the police chief and the county sheriff, obviously, because they both left the other one completely out of their story and what they contributed to the investigation. And it sounds like two stories, but this is good. She, whether she had the gun with her on the couch or she went to the bedroom to get a gun, hearing the noise and getting the gun is okay. Going into the kitchen where the noise came from is okay too. She sounds like a woman who knows what she's doing. Do you want to go look before you call 911? Probably, if you have pets and things, and you know, it could be causing anything. But she took her gun with her, and obviously knew how to handle it. So God bless her. She saved her life, and wherever she got her gun from, it's a good shoot.
Well, she knows how to use a gun, that's for sure. She could make it go bang bang. So she was effective in getting her gun and using it to stop the threats. They went into a home, in my opinion, that they found someone who was willing to defend themselves. They didn't find easy pickings. I teach a class, Fundamentals of Home Defense, and we talk about the 5 fundamentals of home defense. And honestly, if you can actually get to a safe place, we as civilians, we're not law enforcement. I honestly think she probably could have gone to a safe place. If she had gone to that safe place, she should have stayed there. If she had her gun with her and she was faced with the intruders and had to act immediately, I get that. You know, you never know. I mean, she just got lucky, I want to say. These guys weren't so lucky. And, you know, it's even though we talk about the should versus could, you know, even though you're working within the confines of the law, really what are your choices? And in the heat of the moment, you know, people make good decisions, people make bad decisions. And ultimately, I mean, this was a good shoot. She didn't get hurt. And one would only hope that if these guys ever talk to anybody else, that whoever they hang out with, now they know she's got guns in the house. I would say that.
Yeah,
you know,
and they know that, but that's the good thing for the burglar. There's guns there.
There's guns there. There is the good thing for the burglars. You know, it's a double-edged sword here. they know don't go to that house because the 60-year-old woman there will basically shoot you if you go in the house. So it is, you know, we could create scenarios all day, but ultimately I'm just glad that she's, you know, handled the situation. There's a couple more criminals off the street.
Yeah, we've learned, especially I've learned in reviewing these cases, in the short versions here, it's really hard for me to second guess the person who was actually there. You know, what the noises sounded like, whether she'd had, you know, a problem with a cat that sneaks in the back and you know, that sort of thing. There's so many details missing that you really can't tell unless you can put yourself where her eyes are. I tend to trust the person who is looking at the situation, that they saw all those details. What we don't know, was this guy 6'5",
right,
with teeth filed to a point and a swastika tattooed on his head? Yeah, it doesn't mention that stuff, which would indicate to you, oh my God,
right,
you know, look what I found, shoot.
Right.
All those details, the smells, the everything. That's what I say. These are 4 banker boxes when you're looking at a real case.
Human performance factors.
Tough. A company I wanted to mention called Grant Defense. They're at 5580 South Decatur. It's right where the Dewey Animal Shelter is. Their back door is the Dewey Animal Shelter. They manufacture AR-15s and some really nice Glock 19s. They are actually open now. You want to come before you buy a Glock for self-defense. I'm really impressed with their Glocks. I mean, everybody makes ARs, and they have some really nice ARs, but the Glocks just really impressed me. Go over there and take a look. They're at 702-675-3901, but they're right at the Dewey Animal Shelter, if you know where that is. It's where this lady could have got a dog, which would have run into the kitchen, and we'd have discovered ahead of time if there was a bad guy there.
One would hope.
The hope. We're staying with. This is in Indiana. This is from RTV6 ABC News, called the Indy Channel, and Fox 59 again, because it's in the same area here. It's right across the state line. Reported on 6/11 in Owen County, Indiana. Sheriff dispatch received a report of a home invasion in the community of Conot, C-U-N. C-U-N-O-T. I can't pronounce anything.
It's okay.
In the 600 block,
6,000 block?
Cataract, 6,000 block of Cataract Road, around 5:30 a.m. Sunday morning. They were interrupting my show to do a home invasion. Detectives say a 62-year-old homeowner heard a noise and realized someone was in the home. He got up, grabbed his gun. He was the only one in the house at the time. The elderly resident found the intruder and reported he shot at him twice. Officers say both the shots missed. The two struggled and the suspect escaped without being hit. The homeowner suffered minor injuries. Reports did not elaborate on what kind of injuries or how he got them, whether the guy was punching him or whatever. There was some physical scuffle. Deputy said the doors were locked and the suspect got in the house by removing a window air conditioning unit, a common way bad guys get into houses. When you put in mobile homes, they tend to have the air on the outside of the house, and they just disassemble it and take it, and there's a hole to get in the house. And they can actually do that fairly quietly if they work at it. Anyway, there's no suspect description. The police are encouraged to come forward with any relevant information or surveillance footage to help assist the investigation. And there's a number for the sheriff's office. If you happen to live there, you can send me a text to my address, and I'll give you the number for the sheriff's office. Yeah, I wrote in here, thank God the elderly gentleman had a firearm. Had he not, this likely would have been an unsolved murder. He certainly had the will, if not the skill, to use his gun. If you have an elderly family member who is frequently alone, or lives alone, or he wants to live alone, and God dang it, I can take care of myself routine. Some advice: arrange a visit. Make sure the firearm's clean, that it works, that it's got good ammunition in it. and the correct ammunition for it. Some people in their 80s have a World War II gun with World War I ammunition, or blanks, or they don't keep it loaded because they don't know what kind of bullet it takes or cartridge it takes.
Right.
The left media's got me saying bullet instead of cartridge.
Right.
Anyway,
an old Ruger 6
go
or something.
over there and
Yeah.
see that the gun is in working order, and then he knows where he keeps it, and he can grab it, and he can, have him dry fire it a little bit, and then take him out for some shooting practice. Do him a favor. It would really be helpful if you knew that he knows how to work his gun. Wouldn't that be nice? Give you some contact with your grandparents and show them how the gun works. Take them out shooting.
Yeah.
I know you'd agree with that.
Well, most definitely. I think that training is very important. Taking training and then knowing what to practice. Also, in that home scenario, we see that a lot of our elderly in the communities are just being victimized. And the thing of it is they don't really know how to set up their homes so that they can have a better advantage. We even talk about putting together safe rooms. When it comes to someone breaking into your house, we don't ask you to walk towards the threat. We say evade, barricade, arm. You want to basically communicate with 911, let them know what's going on. First and foremost, when you talk to 911, let them know what your address is. Because if the phone should hang up, hey, at least they know where you're at. If the intruder happens to get beyond the door that you're behind or in the room that you are in, that is where now you use force if necessary. And I say if necessary because Bob would agree that everything stands upon reason. If you're in reasonable danger, let's just say the person sees you standing there and you've got a gun in your hand. And this person says, whoa, I don't want any of that. And they turn around and they start to leave. And now you respond with that firearm and shooting. And now you just shot somebody in the back. So we want to understand how to respond in our own homes, how we can keep ourselves safe. Just because this is your house doesn't mean that you should shoot somebody in your house. Imminent danger must be present. And everybody has their own reasonableness, and I get that. Being 82 years old in your home and someone's broken in, I'm sure if the guy's got the tough enough attitude that this is my house and I'm going to shoot you, that's something to consider. Speaking with your counsel and letting them have you understand what the rules are in the county which you live in.
Yeah, I just kind of like the old guy, I like old guys who just
Hey,
go, this
I
is
get
it.
it.
I'm done with you.
I get it.
Local case here in Las Vegas. This was a story in the Review Journal on the 9th of this month, a few days ago. LVMPD, the Las Vegas Metro Police Department, responded about 7 p.m. to a shooting at a company called Adult World. It's at 3781 Meade Avenue here in town. A man pulled up to the adult store in an Uber with an Uber driver, which he had hailed from a different location. The Uber passenger asked his Uber driver to wait for a few minutes until he was done inside. When the man walked into the store, their security officer recognized him. He reportedly had previously destroyed property inside the business and knew he was not welcome. He'd been 86, told not to come on the property, and they read him the trespass statute, whatever. Mm-hmm. But apparently he's coming back. Anyway, on recognizing the man, security officer asked him to leave several times. The man refused. A fight ensued during which the guard, who was in his 50s or 60s, they weren't clear on that, was badly beaten, according to homicide detective locally Dan McGrath, great homicide investigator. The fight lasted several minutes. The man who was tall, the intruder, who was tall and weighed about 250 pounds, continuously struck the security officer in the head. Ultimately, the officer drew his weapon he was carrying and shot the man once in the chest. The unwelcome intruder was taken to University Medical Center where he passed away. That's our local trauma unit here. Both security officer and the Uber driver stayed on the scene and cooperated with police. Lieutenant McGrath said the deceased wasn't trying to rob the place. He said when he was talking near the scene Friday, the security officer did have a concealed weapon permit.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, he's not in uniform; he's in plain clothes.
Mm-hmm.
This is another wacko who decided to attack a business premise for unknown reasons. Maybe he was drunk. Maybe it was drugs. Maybe it's mental illness. We'll know, when the autopsy is done,
Mm-hmm.
to see why. Maybe he's just nuts. Had the security officer not been armed, this would become a serious incident with injuries and very likely deaths involved. From the description of the events, the officer did everything to avoid shooting, and finally he had no choice when he was losing the fight to this larger and much younger man. It's great the Uber driver stayed to help investigators understand what happened.
Mm-hmm.
Here we have an absolutely unbiased witness. He wasn't in the store, but he heard everything.
Right.
Saw it. One wonders what the store employee or employees were doing at the same time. No weapons or pepper spray behind the counter. This is just a thing for business owners that get hit with stuff. If you feel you need a security guard, in most places that are open 24/7,
Mm-hmm.
they get wackos in all the time. I'm working now on a smoke shop robbery, is one of the cases I'm handling at the moment, and they don't keep a pepper spray behind the counter, and they obviously didn't have a plan. It didn't say anywhere in this who called 911. I presume there may have only been one employee. Usually there's more than one on the night shift, but what is he doing? Watching the guard get his head beat in?
Right.
He or she, we don't know. When there are more details on this case, we'll all know a little bit more, but I'm not understanding why there had to be somebody else in the store besides the security guard.
I don't know the layout of that property, so
you don't go there all the time?
No.
Oh, well.
I didn't even know there was an adult world.
Well, there is.
What the heck is it?
What is
this place?
These little guys are all over town, I'm sure, and I'm not familiar with it either. My wife watches the show, so I got to be careful. But this is if you have a business that is open all night, convenience stores and smoke shops and on and on and on, you have to know that sooner or later, probably once a week, some wacko is going to walk in there and either shoplift and run or try and beat somebody up and take the cash register with him. We have a huge crime wave going on in Las Vegas, and most towns do. Have a plan.
Yeah.
Get your employees together and say, look, here's the direction. Something happens, you got security cameras. Do they have cameras? Of course they have cameras.
Vegas.
Are they operating?
There's cameras everywhere.
That will tell the police a lot. This is very early in the investigation, but I'm just looking at this. I don't want to say elderly guard, 50s or 60s, but he's got a much younger guy and a very large, strong guy.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, he didn't want to shoot anybody if he didn't have to, and it got to the point where he had to.
Right.
And so far, so good. I'm sure this is a good shoot, but
most definitely.
We never know.
He was well within the right to do so, and yeah, I hope that he gets past it emotionally, because even shooting somebody, I mean, you survive that fight, but emotionally, it'll weigh on him for a while. It's going to rent space in his head.
Yeah, it's obviously he is that unwanting to use deadly force.
Mm-hmm.
He's a nice guy. I mean, he's going way out of his way not to shoot this guy, and I just have a feeling that personality is going to be really hard on him.
Yeah, most definitely.
There was a story on WSBN ABC 7 News in Miami in Brevard County, Florida, that I wanted to address. This is about a shooting, sort of. The county sheriff, his name is Wayne Ivey, posted a video on Facebook Wednesday shortly after the deadly workplace shooting in Orlando that killed 5 people. There was a UPS store or something there that was,
Mm-hmm.
anyway, There were 5 people killed. And he said, folks, now more than ever is the time for our citizens to be prepared to serve as their own first line of defense. Not only them, but for their families, Sheriff Ivey said. As images of Fort Lauderdale airport shooting and Pulse nightclub massacre flashed on the screen behind him, Ivey warned residents that attacks have happened locally as well as abroad. What's next is to fully understand that this is a war and you are better be prepared to wage it to protect you, your family, and those around you if attacked, he said. Ivey stressed that attackers rely on people running, hiding, and waiting for help rather than fighting back. What they don't count on is being attacked themselves, having to become defensive to save their own lives. The sheriff said that calling 911 means officers are on the way, but said until they arrive, it's up to you and those with you to neutralize or eliminate the threat. Ivey encouraged people to take self-defense classes, urged those with concealed weapon permits to carry their guns with them at all times. No matter who you are or what your position is on guns, there's no denying the fact the only thing that stops a bad guy with a gun or a knife is an armed and well-prepared citizen or law enforcement officer, Ivey said. The story closed by saying the sheriff's message received a mixed response. Some residents applauded his stance while others criticized it, calling it fear-mongering and encouraging vigilantes. All of us here at Fired Up and everybody connected with the show, my guest lawyers and everybody else, realize that Sheriff Ivey is absolutely right. Carry your firearm and have a defensive tool available at all times. You are your own first responder.
Yes.
And I know Maggie will jump into this, but I tell you, the people that annoy me the most that would come out of CCW class, they come in for their renewal and they say, well, you know, I hardly ever carry it unless I'm going to some place, you know, that's really dangerous, and that kind of crap. The bad guys pick what places are dangerous. You don't. And if there's a place that's dangerous, don't go there. That's the solution to that one.
Right.
Anyway, charge on. You are your own first responder.
You are your own first line of defense. You're the first person to respond to evil when it shows up, because evil does exist. It's what you do and how you prepare yourself to respond to a threat. You know, we call that the dynamic critical incident. It's surprising. Had you known it was happening, you wouldn't have gone in. You don't know what's going on next. It's chaotic. You know, now we see that whatever firearm, or if it's a knife or whatever it is that you're using, or pepper spray, if you will, whatever it is that you're using to defend yourself, the appropriate response is to use that force to defend yourself if force is being thwarted towards you. Imminent danger, if it's present, you're allowed to defend yourself. Being prepared and knowing exactly how to respond to that theater of civilian war, as he put it, is really important. And taking appropriate training based on what's plausible in your life. You know, we start out with what is most probable, and then we expand from there once we've developed some sort of abilities and understanding of the firearm or the knife or the pepper spray that you're going to be using, because I think training is important, all-encompassing when it comes to multiple uses of different types of weapons, if you will. There's less than lethal force, and then there is that force that is necessary to stop a threat, which is that deadly force with that firearm.
Have
Training.
Carry it. We've had a number of cases over the last 10, 12 weeks where basically a disinterested third party happened to be there and saved lives. And a couple of cases of civilians saving police officers who were attacked and beaten into the ground and things like that. If all of you who have permits, in Nevada, we're looking at about 15% of the population now has a permit to carry a firearm. At that level, we should have almost no street crime. But let the police handle it if they can, but be prepared to be there to slow them up. Another attorney I work with, I want to mention Jerry Creed. He's an attorney. He's out in Summerlin. It's C-R-E-E-D, Jerry Creed. He does elder law predominantly, but he is an expert on firearms trusts and especially now Class 3 trusts. That is an ever-evolving section of law right now. We have perhaps silencers being taken off the Class 3 list.
That'd be great.
We now have shotguns that are made with 14-inch barrels and 26-inch sort of shoulder stocks that are not Class 3 items. They're taking them off the list. There's a lot of stuff going on there, particularly if you have a Class 3 trust where they want to change who can become the future trustees, whether they should have background checks or not prior to the event of your death. Because we've had a number of cases where the individual, left these to his son, and he wrote his trust up 12 years ago, and meanwhile the son's become a multiple felon, and there's nobody else listed.
Yeah.
So anyway, Jerry can work on all that stuff. 702-806-7777. One of them great lawyer phone numbers. He's office out in Summerlin. Normal business hours, free consultation, as most lawyers do. And there we are. This is I'm going to do this is a new section for Fired Up. I get lots of calls about gun shows and this and that, and who's doing what, and did they change this law and so forth and so on. I do have my home office phone that I do listen to every 24 hours. So I try not to answer it. I don't usually answer it, but anyway, I'm going to put an area here, a new section called etc. For gun people to leave announcements to get their project or their class or their event out on the air. We have obviously several hundred listeners on the radio show on Sundays, and 400 or 500 people that get the radio show, to get this YouTube show right now. A couple of things I put in here that I want to talk about. First, some comments on on my part about the attempted murders of the Republican members of Congress. We have reached a new low in political crap. My take on this is the leaders of the left movement, their commentators, have for years advocated violence directly against conservative demonstrators, against conservative speakers at every venue, every college you could possibly name. They have encouraged and applauded physical attacks on police officers. When these idiots start throwing bricks at the policeman who is only there to do his job. Now, one of these left true believers acted out with an assault rifle, no less, an assault rifle. A disgusting and, in my opinion, entirely predictable result of the lies and the propaganda crap from all these left side politicians. This isn't a gun issue, so I tend to want to stay out of these political things, but it became a gun issue. And I like that the bad guy used an assault rifle. He was on Bernie, he was on Bernie Sanders volunteer and all this crap.
Yeah.
I mean, he's one of their wackos, not one of our wackos. We got our own. But I expect what's going to happen is the intended victims are going to start carrying firearms everywhere they go. Just like the rest of us who fear criminal attack. None of those congressional candidates or congressional lobbyists or staff members or whatever at that ball field were armed. None. The guy who says, I'm not going to carry my gun because where I'm going isn't really dangerous. I don't carry it all the time. There's a whole passel of them right there. And had it not been for the Capitol Police jumping in at 100 miles an hour and getting themselves shot up, taking this guy down, it would have been a real tragedy. I'm going to do more on this next week when I have Lenny Davis on. Most of you know him as my favorite ex-fed. Worked for ICE and customs and all that stuff as a firearms instructor. And we're going to have a long discussion on this subject. What I don't understand, they say now they got to get concealed weapon permits, and in Virginia they're yelling out the governor idiot went off completely of what was happening here.
Right.
And I don't want to get into that now without Lenny here, because Lenny will be a better spokesman. Anyway, you can comment her if you'd like to. I surprised her. This wasn't in the outline when I sent it to her.
Oh yeah, yeah, no worries, no worries at all. I mean, I think that because there were armed individuals on property, I think this is a great testimony that firearms save people. Had there not been anybody on property at the baseball field with guns, this guy could have actually gotten closer to everybody and shot as many people as he wanted to, depending on how much ammo he had. It's just the fact that they don't mention that, hey, there was somebody there with guns to defend everybody. So in this case, I mean, there were potentially signs on social media. We're seeing so much that people just blast out to social media. We're getting a lot of warning on social media and things like that. Was there any warning from the family? Could the family have said anything? And I 100% agree with you. I mean, there are a lot of personalities on either side of the aisle who are instigating a lot of things going on. But I can say this, that it is the liberals who are really crying in their own soup and expecting everybody else to do everything for them. And when they don't get their way, they do stuff like this. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
This is such a clear example of these commentators and bloggers on the left caused this. They have said for years that the commentators of the right caused the standoff out here in the desert and so forth, the Bundy case, and they may have contributed to it. But when it happens the other way around, they stand up and admit you're wrong and dummy up and apologize. Right. I'm watching anyway.
Yeah, they need to own their BS.
Yes, when you make a mistake, own up to it.
Exactly.
A company called DivineEventsLV.com, Divine Events, is putting on an outdoor culinary experience at the Water District Spring Preserve tomorrow night. Most of you know where it is, off Charleston and Valley View, where they have all the plants and stuff you should grow in the desert, and they have a little zoo there of desert. So anyway, this thing is put on by a company called Divine Events, and it is a culinary delight for what outdoor cooking can be. Yeah. They're going to have chefs there from all over the place. The admission is $89, and you get free outdoor food prepared by some master chefs in cooking cactus and whatever else they cook. It sounds like a wonderful thing. The expert chef's going to be there and show you how to prepare it, and then you get to eat all that stuff. Anyway, you go to DivineEventsLV.com, and they can set you up, or you just show up there. It's tomorrow night.
It's going to be an amazing
event. So if you're
event.
listening to the radio show on Sunday morning, it already happened. Missed it.
Yeah, it is going to be an amazing event. They're going to be cooking.
It's like from 7:30 till 11 or something like that.
Yeah, they're going to be cooking. If you're a hunter, this is the hunter's delight. They're going to be cooking rabbit. They're going to be cooking pheasant.
Are you going to?
I'm going. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know.
Oh yeah. As a matter of fact, I offered that if I could actually jump in and bring some of my own wild game and contribute some of it to it, so that people can understand that wild game is just delicious. I mean, it's better than anything you can get in a grocery store. But yeah, I'm really excited about it. They're going to be making some just delicious dishes with foods that you wouldn't normally have in a restaurant unless it had wild game. And it's not your standard buffalo and your stuff that you would normally get in maybe a restaurant up in the Mount Charleston or something. But it's going to be amazing. And you've got some master chefs who are going to be making culinary delights that are just going to make your taste buds dance, let me tell you.
Yes. So go there tomorrow night and if this is Sunday morning, you're hearing this, you missed it.
We should do it again.
Another thing happened at the gun show. We try and do the major gun shows here and there. Maggie and I were both at the Cashman show
Crossroads
last weekend, and while I was gone, as I was here by myself, my table guy is having surgery and he couldn't be there, so there I am, and I got to talk to a lot of people that I don't normally talk to.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, while I was gone from the table to get coffee or something, I found a sticker on my desk when I came back that was really cute. It reads, "It takes a special kind of stupid to think criminals will obey gun laws." Duh. I love the sticker.
There you go.
So we left that. Thank you. That was cute. A little sticker, that it was only like yay big, but it would make a great bumper sticker. And that'd tell all the bad guys there's a gun in your car, of course.
Right.
And on a sadder note, June 9th was the 3-year anniversary of the murder of Metro officers Beck and Soldo. There was a graduation of one of their kids that a lot of Metro officers attended. Joseph Wilcox, who was the concealed weapon holder who tried to intervene in the Walmart store and was murdered by these same people. It's also the 3rd anniversary of his death. Joseph Wilcox was I've never brought it up anywhere, but he was a CCW student at the gun store. And he obviously couldn't tell the female who was behind him was pushing a shopping cart, was one of the bad guys, and she killed him. Just want to remember him. He was a great guy. He was trying to be a security guard going to class, and as I recall, Doug Gillespie made him an honorary Metro deputy when he found that out, and his family still has that badge that was put on his coffin by the sheriff. Intervening in third-party crimes, third-party events always put you at risk. This guy had an incredible amount of courage and was just one of those things. Just to remember him. Rest well.
Yes.
Rocky Mountain Gun Show next weekend, June 16 and 18 at the Grand Sierra Resort in Reno. We have passes for the gun shows that are, that's Crossroads Show. Never mind. Western Trail is here on the 24th and 25th at the Orleans.
Yes.
And again on July 8th and 9th. Usually I will make that show part of it anyway, sitting at the NRA table, at least on Saturday afternoon, to answer questions and so forth. We don't get our own table there normally. Claude Hall's original Las Vegas Gun Show is, the next one is July 15 and 16 at the Sports Center. We will be there. I like that show. It's a little show, and I know everybody there, and I always get a table there. It's cool.
Yeah,
And,
I'll actually be at the Western Trails Gun and Knife Show, both shows. We'll also be teaching CCW classes there as well.
Good.
And we'll also have 2 booths, one for the well-armed women and one for Homeland Personal Protection.
Well, maybe I'll drop in on your booth.
You can come and hang out with me.
NRA,
You can come hang out with me, buddy.
And then Rocky Mountain is coming up again August 26 and 27 at Cashman Field downtown. There were rumors going all over the Cashman show that was their last show at Cashman. It is not. They're having this one on the August 26 and 27 and another one in December. Those will be the last shows at Cashman unless something really bizarre happens. They're looking for another venue. But for the Rocky Mountain shows, I do have passes if you want to go to the show up in Reno. I know we have a lot of listeners up north. Or to the one here on the 26th and 27th. Pass. You can send me an email at the address there or leave a note on the recorder with your contact information. Yes. I had a couple of them last show that said, Hi, this is Doris. I want to pass to the show. Thanks. Click.
You know Doris? Why don't you know Doris?
That's a phony. It wasn't really named Doris. I made that up.
Okay.
Anyway, we're back on radio at 1400 a.m. on Sunday, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. and YouTube here next week, Thursday. Next week, as I mentioned, I've got Lenny Davis on. I want to really get into him on this this murder of what's about to be a murder. They're now saying that
it's a homicide. Yeah.
That it's going to be a homicide.
Mm-hmm.
Tell your friends we're on Sunday and at 9 a.m. and Maggie, where you can find her.
ccwmaggie.com.
A great instructor, teaches dynamite lady self-defense classes.
That's right. At the gun store, by the way.
We are,
Also.
we are right up on our hour. So I think timing was right. The last page is blank.
And there you go.
So
we filled it all in.
Thank you for watching Fired Up one more time. I appreciate it. We are just having a good time here doing these. If you look on our website, we've got the guests set up for the next 6 weeks in a row already, which I have never had happen before in the history of the show. So that's great. And lots of good stuff coming up. Have a great weekend. Stay inside. Stay in the shade. It's going to be 117 degrees.
Yeah.
So stay in the house and watch old reruns of Fired Up. Thank you so much for watching. I'm going to find my button now. And any last moment words, Maggie? No, yes.
No, I think that
Sure,
we covered some great information, and hope to see you guys soon. If you're looking for training and classes, you know who to call. Lots of numbers to call, and there you go.
I resisted at the gun show. Every time somebody walked up and said, "Hi, Bob, I got my permit from you 6 years ago, but I never carried the gun, you know." I didn't choke any of them.
No.
Carry your gun.
And take training.
Yes. Have a good weekend. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.